I am constantly reminded about why I have the best job in the world. Now, we've got a bunch of items in the world of movie news we are going to get to in just a minute, but in case you did not know, one of the best movies of the year, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, goes on sale on DVD and Blu-ray today. And to help commemorate that, that home video event going on, we are extremely lucky to have with us Anthony and Joe Russo, the Russo Brothers, the directors of Captain America: Winter Soldier. Guys, thank you so much for coming into the studio today.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Hey, listen, before I get into anything else, one of the things that I like to ask filmmakers, especially about films that are awesome, and let's just get this out of the way. The film is awesome, so no need for false modesty or anything like that, okay? You know, you go into it, obviously you have your script, you're happy with it, you're excited about making the film, you believe you have a great story, but then comes at some point that aha moment that you realize in your own, in a quiet room or in a car driving, we actually do have an awesome movie. This movie is awesome. At what point did that come for you guys when you realized this worked? This all came together and it worked?
It's a tough question.
I think it's usually when you see the first cut, right? That's when, that's the real litmus test. We worked with Clooney early in our careers. He and Soderbergh produced a movie for us called Welcome to Collinwood. And we always said to Clooney, Clooney told us after we screened the initial cut of the director's cut of Welcome to Collinwood, we said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Well, at least I didn't throw up." And that was his litmus test for whether a movie's going to hold up or not. He said when he saw the first cut of Out of Sight that he walked outside and threw up because he thought his career was over. So. I think when you get a first cut that's watchable, a director's cut that's watchable, you know you're in the ballpark of achieving something good. There was no, when we watched it for the first time, there was no major plot holes. There was, structurally it held up. It had really good momentum. The action came out the way we were hoping, and so I think that was the moment.
But I will say we may have had some preludes to it on set. When we were executing some of the action sequences, it's just the way it was coming together, the shots we were getting, the energy. It felt like we were getting something very special. And also with a lot of the performances, some of the more intense performance scenes in the movie. Once the actors performed those, I think we also kind of felt like, wow, we got something special. So
now, I find that when Marvel films in particular, a lot of films, but generally with Marvel, the ones that really, really work are the ones where the relationships take front and center and really impress. Like with Thor, it was the relationship between Thor and Loki and Thor and his father. In Iron Man, I love the relationship between Tony and Pepper and stuff like that. You had three really key relationships I found in Captain America: Winter Soldier, all involving Cap, with Widow, Falcon, and obviously with Bucky. And one of the things I loved so much about this film was you instantly think, well, Black Widow's in this one. Oh, okay, that big romance with Captain America and Black Widow. That's the standard Hollywood formula. You guys went against that grain. You didn't go that way, and I love the fact that you did. Was there ever discussions, though, and thoughts brought up that you guys were going to try to start something that way? Thanks, guys. Perfect picture to bring up right now. Yeah. Did you guys ever think about going in that direction? Was that ever on the table?
I don't think so. I think we always thought about that relationship as a very intimate one, but a friendship. The analogy we always used for ourselves was like a work husband, work wife relationship, where because they're, because of their closeness in their job, they develop a closeness in their emotional life. And between a man and a woman, that sort of takes on colors of a married couple, sometimes even if they aren't, or a romantic couple, even if they aren't.
There would be sexual tension because they're both attractive people. They're both single.
I didn't know this.
They are. They're working intimately together. So we felt like that was a more interesting relationship to explore. It was less traditional, and also you want to be true to Cap's character. He's not a guy that that really falls for people. It takes him a little while to acclimate and to let people in and service comes first with him, and then personal comes second. So it wasn't really a movie that allowed for the space for that to happen in a way that would have been satisfying, I think, to audiences.
Now, when the word came out that you guys were bringing Falcon into the mix, there were some of us, I'll admit, I was one of them, who was a little bit worried that felt like, is it going to feel like they're just forcing in these extra characters and stuff like that? You guys found a way to have, and when you got Anthony Mackie. So right there. But right from that first scene, running the track, and on your left, and you found a way to not just make him fit in the film and not make it feel jarring. It was like he was there from day one. That relationship between Cap and Falcon was so natural, so real. What was the key for you guys to make that relationship work so well?
Well, I mean, if you look at where Cap is in the movie, I mean, we're finally catching up to him fully in the modern world in this movie,
Right.
okay? Because and he's a man. He's very out of place. He works for an organization he's not sure he sort of believes in or trusts anymore with Shield. He's a very isolated guy. So I mean, he was starting the movie in a place where he's very much in need of a friend. So in that respect, it was a very powerful relationship because Cap was in a place where he needed it. Also, we really liked the fact that they had similar backgrounds. They're both military guys. They're both sort of salt of the earth kind of backgrounds. And that humble background that they share, and their sort of military training and discipline is just it put them in the same place, in a lot of ways.
I also love what you guys did with Bucky, because there were a lot of different ways that the whole Bucky thing could have fallen apart. I mean, there was lots of different ways that something like that may not work, and it captures you right away in the film. Like when I walked out, the first time I walked out, I turned to my friend and I said, it felt very much like an Arthur and Lancelot relationship in many ways to me. When did you guys decide on having not just Bucky as, Winter Soldier and stuff like that, but you were going to maintain those strong emotional bonds between the two characters? How did that all evolve?
Well, it was critical to the storytelling. I mean, we knew that we had a third act. We always say that like a way you can define a third act in an action film, one of the great moments in action movies is, when Jim Brown has to run with the grenades and the Dirty Dozen and get them in the chimney pipes before all the Nazis get out of the basement. We had that kind of third act. Cap has got the grenades and he's got to get them in the chimney pipes before the helicarriers take off. So, that's structural. That's plot, right? And that's not something I think that people can necessarily sink their teeth into, and that might be. I think when people ultimately find a movie superficial, it's because the movie's really plot heavy. You have to have story. And story is what's the emotional moments in the film? What are the touchstone moments? And that relationship between Cap and Bucky, remember when we sat with Kevin for the first time, Kevin Feige, who runs Marvel, and he told us they were going to do the Winter Soldier story. We said, that's Star Wars. I mean, it's really, it has all that pregnancy of emotion that Luke and Vader have. It's this, it's two brothers who are in peak physical condition, who are both super soldiers in their own right. One's a super soldier, one's a super killer, who come into conflict. And can this brainwashed best friend, that's all that's left of Cap's past, other than the dying Peggy, can Cap save him? Can Cap save that component of his past? How important is that to a guy who was frozen for 70 years and now feels completely out of place in the world? That's where we knew we had to have the emotional touchdowns. We always said, I want to be 12 years old and crying at the end of this movie and looking at my buddy, making sure he's not looking at me and doing that's the moment that we wanted to have happen at the end of the film. We knew that, that would be the story. Hot air balloon that would lift up the third act, is if we could create real emotional conflict for the audience and those characters in that third act.
Speaking of the little wiping of the tear moment, I remember
Right.
one of the after credit scenes that we talk about on the show all the time. That scene where it's just Bucky standing there looking at his own, like with him and Cap on that memorial, no words spoken, no movement, killed me.
Yeah.
Like I just love that scene. I've snuck into the AMC Burbank 16 Theater probably 15 to 20 times just when I knew the movie was ending, just so I could watch that scene again.
Right. Wow.
Like it was just so cool the way it came out. Now, whenever I talk about Captain America around here, one of the questions that we often get posed to us by viewers is there ever going to be a future for Red Skull? Now, we saw the way Red Skull ended in that first film. We know the actor isn't really all that keen on coming back to be Red Skull, but was there ever, going into Captain America Winter Soldier, in those initial stages, was there ever talk about, is there a way to incorporate him back? Has there ever been any talk about bringing him back that you guys are aware of, or that you're even permitted to talk about?
I think we heard that prior to our involvement with the project, I think we heard they may have had that conversation at one point, but we weren't around for it, so it's hard for us to comment on it.
I mean, specifically the tone that we were chasing in that movie, I know we have a guy in a computer. But
We were just talking about that off screen.
the tone we were chasing was sort of that conspiracy thriller, and we wanted to try and ground the movie as much as we could. And Red Skull's he's a fantastical character, and so it didn't necessarily fit for Cap 2, especially because it was about the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, certainly Hydra exists, and that's his legacy, but there's something interesting about the fact that his legacy, outlived the Skull. And they're still dealing with the demons of it, but not necessarily him. Now, that doesn't preclude him from returning, because he's certainly in the rogues gallery of Captain America characters. He's the preeminent figure. So that doesn't preclude him from returning. It didn't necessarily make sense, though, for Cap 2 to use him.
Right. Now, I want to talk about some of the events going on today, the big stuff. But before I do, I will get lynched if I don't at least ask you this one. Now, we know that in the comic books, especially with the way you guys set up Winter Soldier in the last film, we know in the comic books at some point and another here and there that Bucky has taken up the shield. He's become Captain America. We see now in the comic books that Falcon is becoming the new Captain America. No innuendo. I'm just getting right to it. Is Steve Rogers, Captain Rogers, is he still Captain America by the end of Captain America 3?
We actually kill him on page 60. Did I just say that?
And then
I just say that?
Then we introduced the first female Captain America. But
No, we're going to have Falcon and Bucky fight for the shield. Whoever wins gets the mantle. Listen, it's, we always say it's called the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's not the books. It certainly borrows from the books, and it borrows from the mythology, and that's part of the fun of it. If you're a comic book fan, is that you get to see these things that you've dreamed about since you were a kid. You get to see them realized in a way where the effects are finally up to par with what you want the vision of the movie to be. But it doesn't mean that everything that the books are so vast and complex, and so many decades of issues and storytelling. We can't fit that all in the 2 hours. So we have to pick and choose, and I think it doesn't mean that it won't happen. So I'm being intentionally obtuse here, but it doesn't mean that it will. So
well
who
said.
knows?
Well said. All right, but I do have to ask you about today. Captain America: Winter Soldier hits home video today. You guys have some really cool events lined up today. Tell us about what you're doing for the rest of the day once you leave here.
yeah, we have a special event at Amoeba Records in Hollywood where there's going to be a special vending machine.
Cap versus Hydra vending machine. There's gonna be prizes given away. We're gonna be signing DVDs and talking to the fans. So it's a big sort of release event with all kinds of cool stuff going on over at Amoeba Records.
That sounds like a lot of fun. And the last thing I'm going to ask you about here, too, getting back to this film, is that you mentioned the fact that it's really a conspiracy movie. I remember very, very early in the process, word came out that it's going to feel like a 70s political thriller. And we went into it, and Amy Rose, I think, was there, and we walked into it thinking, how are they going to do this? Because it's still a comic book movie, right? Mm-hmm. You can say it's going to be a political thriller, but it's going to come back to feeling like a great comic book film. It feels like a 70s political thriller. It was just so different from any comic book movie we've ever seen on that level. How did you guys keep it from just feeling like another comic book film and really drawing out that feel of that political thriller, that conspiracy theory movie?
I mean, I think that's something. I think if you look at like all of our work, we like combining sort of seemingly incongruous things, and sort of mixing them together and see what we come up with. It's kind of been a creative formula of ours. Whether you look at like Arrested Development, we sort of mixed absurdist comedy with a mockumentary style, realism, etc. So yeah, we like the challenge of like, how do you make a superhero feel real? Something is specifically fantasy. So I don't know. It's just a commitment on our. It's just a hardcore commitment to grounding things in every way you can. Now, certainly you can't ground everything, or else you have no superhero movie anymore. But we just took every opportunity we could and said, how can we tether ourselves to the real world texturally or narratively, so that people feel like this is something that's plausible. It's something that can happen in our contemporary world. And I think that, so when you do that sort of like with every beat of the film, even though there's many beats where you can't do that too, it kind of shifts, it's like a tipping point almost. It kind of puts you in a realism, even though it's a fantasy realism.
Yeah, you want to check all the boxes on stylistically too on your choices, so that you're creating that conspiracy tone. We grew up on 70s films. It was two touchstones for us in this movie. We've been collecting comic books since we were kids, and our father was a big movie fanatic. We used to watch The Late Show with him growing up, and he loved 70s thrillers, French Connection and 3 Days of the Condor. So we grew up on those films. So we went back and studied French Connection and Condor. And one thing we looked at really was, because we wanted to eke out tension in the film, was we looked at De Palma. And so there's we owe a great debt to De Palma in this movie. The elevator sequence, Fury stuck in his car, sort of putting characters in impossible situations where you then milk the tension for as long as you can. How do they escape this situation? It almost seems like an impossible situation. And so that's, I think, the look of the film, the handheld camera work, the style of fighting in the movie, the style of acting in the film, the type of lenses that we use, they're longer lenses, all that contributes to creating a 70s paranoia vibe.
Well, you did it. So, I mean, so many things here to congratulate you guys on. The movie in general, the DVD release today and the Blu-ray release. Your session, by the way, if you're in the LA area, head on down to Amoeba Records down there today. You're going to meet these guys, get some autographs, and congratulations on winning that game of chicken with Batman versus Superman. We called it the whole way. So thank you guys for being here. We cannot wait for Captain America 3.
Hey everyone, if you liked this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC movie talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.